Hi everyone, my name is Blaise and I am a top sales professional. I've been in the world of selling for 17 years now. I've sold many different types of products and services: homes, advertising, solar panels, intangible products, tangible products, websites, networking programs, and many different other types of products and services. I would like to speak to you today about closing because obviously it's a crucial step in the sales process. I'm actually going to do a video of each step in the sales process, from meeting and creating rapport all the way through closing. But I'm a goal-oriented individual, as I hope you are as well. So I always like keeping the end in mind. With that being said, I'm going to start with closing and work backwards through the sales process. Now, you could do an outstanding presentation. You could create really great trust and rapport with your prospect. You could do a phenomenal discovery process and needs assessment. You could handle their objections, create urgency, but if you don't close a sale, if goods or services does not change hands, nothing really happened. In this video, I'm going to speak with you both about strategy and about attitude. I'm going to show you how to close progressively from the point that you meet the prospect all the way till you ask for that final closing decision. One of the first things I want to quickly touch on here is the vibes you're giving off when you meet a prospect for the first time. So I think it was Zig Ziglar that said that sales is a transference of emotion and feeling. So you need to be very careful about the emotion and the feeling that you are transferring to your prospect. Okay, I see a lot of salespeople that are very eager to make sales, and I understand. But if you are coming off as eager to make a sale to a prospect, it's not going to seem like you are there to educate and guide them into a good decision that's in their best interest. It's going to seem like you are just there to make a quick sale. Now, the best way to make sure you are not acting too eager to make a sale is to make sure you are unattached to the outcome. All right, and that can be easier said than done. But after you've been in sales for a while, you're making a lot of sales and you're making great money, you can get to a place to where it's very easy to be unattached to the sale, to the outcome, because you don't need the money. So the number one thing to make sure you are unattached to every individual sale is to get your money right. Okay. Now, again, after you've been very successful in selling and you are making phenomenal income, it's going to be very, very easy for you to correct your attitude and your internal mind state to make sure that you're going into every situation and you are closing for the prospect's benefit, not for your benefit. You always want to make sure that you are closing for the prospect. It's something you do for the prospect, not to the prospect. You always want to come from a place that you feel like your product or service is going to be more beneficial to the prospect in their life than the commission is going to be beneficial to you. Okay, now 17 years ago when I first started out in the world of selling, I didn't have, a whole bunch of reserves. I mean, I did need the commission. And I did two different things, okay? I would fill up my pipeline and I would make it a game. All right, those two different things. So I'm gonna go into each one of these. Filling up your pipeline just obviously means get out there, prospect, talk to a bunch of people, and have a whole bunch of appointments each and every day. And I am gonna do another video on actually prospecting and making those appointments, because that is a sale and a close of its own, all right? But make sure that you have a full pipeline each and every day. That way, you are not emotionally attached to each individual appointment because, hey, you've got 15 more appointments that day. That's just a no on your way to the inevitable yes, okay? Which leads me to my other point. So the other thing I would do, again, is make it like a game. So I figured out how many presentations I needed to do in order to make a sale. And so obviously you're going to need to get so many no's before you get to a yes. Especially when you're starting out, sales is a numbers game. So figure out how many people do I need to talk to, how many no's do I need to get to that inevitable yes, and then make it a game. Maybe it takes you 10 no's to get to a yes. So if you've got 20 appointments, there's a very good chance you could have 2 sales that day. So they tell you no problem, I just got 5 no's. I've probably got another 4 or 5 no's before I get a yes, but it's gonna happen, all right? And so that's going to make it a much more playful environment for you. And then also what I did is, while I was on each presentation, I was always learning and growing. So in the world of sales, you got to read books, you got to do trainings, you've got to learn, right? So learn different new skills and then practice those. So it's a numbers game. It's a game. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. So once you're in your actual presentation, further treat it like a game. Treat it as growing and getting better and having fun rather than this serious situation where you need to make this money. All right, so do those two things. On one hand, fill up your pipeline like crazy so you've got so many people to talk to that you don't have to be worried about each individual conversation. And on the other side of the spectrum, treat it like a numbers game. Know your numbers as far as how many people you need to talk to get to that yes. And then every time you get a no, be excited, celebrate that, you've already gotten so many no's and you're that much closer to a yes. And then focus on each presentation as having fun, practicing, growing your skills and getting better, not at being perfect or making a sale, just getting better from your last presentation. That'll really help you stay unattached to the outcome in those early years. Now, one thing I hear a lot of salespeople say, especially new salespeople, is that they are uncomfortable closing and definitely uncomfortable asking for the sale multiple times because they do not want to be perceived as a pushy salesperson. Now, I've got to tell you, I've been doing this a long time, and I know so many more people that are not successful in the world of selling because they didn't ask for a close rather than someone who is not successful in the world of selling because they asked too many times. Here's the thing, if you did your job right up front, you earned your right to ask for the sale. If it's obvious to you through the conversation of learning about your prospect that your product or service solves the prospect's problem, you are literally doing a disservice to your prospect by not asking them to purchase what you're selling. This is why a very effective needs assessment or discovery process is so crucial. And this is an extremely important step, arguably one of the most important steps in the sales process. And I will be covering this definitely on another video because it's a long subject. But at a very high level, you want to know why your prospect or potential customer is interested in your product or service in the first place. What problem are they trying to solve? And what's the implications of that problem in their life? And does your product or service actually meet their needs and solve their problem? And what will life be like for them when that problem is solved in their life? And you want them to tell you all of these things. If through this conversation and if through this process, your customers and you agree that your product or service solves their issue, then you owe it to them to ask them to move forward with what they just told you would solve their problem. Now, the beauty of closing for the prospect's benefit and not your own benefit is your true intentions will shine through and it will really help build that trust and rapport with that individual prospect. Now, making sure that the prospect likes and trusts you is so important. And I'm going to discuss trust building and the likability factor in another video. But just know this, if a client doesn't trust or like you, or one of those two isn't in place, it's gonna be really hard for you to close that opportunity. So far I've really been talking to you about your internal mind state and how you come off to your client in a presentation or in a closing situation. So now I'm gonna start getting into more of strategies for actually closing. So closing isn't something that you finally do at the end of your presentation if all the stars align and everything is perfect. Closing is the process of gaining agreements throughout your presentation. So you should be closing progressively from the start to the end of your presentation. And usually in most proposals, there's a lot of different facets or different parts or what have you. So you should be gaining an agreement on each different individual part of the process, whether it's the time frame, the price, the actual product, that the product meets their needs. I mean, there's so many different bits and pieces that make up a sales presentation, and you need to be closing at each crucial step in your individual sales process. Now, obviously, you know your product or service better than I do. So what I would recommend you do is actually script out your presentation from start to finish and list every individual facet of your product or service that you need to gain agreement on, and then script a closing question to each one of those pieces. All right, and make sure every piece is within your presentation and you've got a nice solid closing question for each individual piece. And the closing questions that you have throughout your presentation should be one of two different types of questions, either trial closes or leading questions. So I would have, for each individual piece of your product or service that you need to gain agreement on, I would either be asking agreement in the form of a trial close or in the form of a leading question. So I'm gonna go into trial closes first and what those are and how to execute. So trial closes are questions that lead you to a yes or no answer. It gives you a good sense of how your prospect is feeling about your product, service, and presentation. It takes their buying temperature, so to speak. All right, so let me give you some examples of what a trial close sounds like. Let's say hypothetically you're a real estate agent. I'm a real estate agent, so it makes it easy. Something as simple as, how do you feel about the kitchen? How do you like the master bedroom? Does this lower level floor plan work for you? How do you feel about the house as a whole? Those are all statements that gets you to see, where is this prospect in the process? Are we headed in the right direction? Are we headed towards a close, or do we need to discuss things and handle some objections and get through them so we can move forward? Or do I not want to be spending time with individuals? Is this just not a good fit for them? And let me give you some examples for business to business sales as well. I used to be in business to business sales. So it could be as simple as, do you feel like this would increase the profitability for you and your company? Or does this sound like this system is going to work for you? Or even something as simple as, how are we doing so far? How does this sound to you so far? Anything that checks in with the prospect and gets a yes or no answer of how they're feeling about the presentation thus far is going to be a trial close. So at each key pivotal point in the sales presentation, on each thing that you need to gain agreement on, if you don't know how they're feeling, you're going to want to ask a trial closing question. And even if it's not a key point in your presentation that you need to gain agreement on, you should be asking many trial closes throughout your presentation. So if you've been talking for a little bit, just stop yourself. Think about it. Think about, how long have I been talking? Because if you've been talking too long, they're probably not listening. People have a very short attention span. So stop yourself if you've been talking for a while and just check in with them. How's it going? How's it sounding so far? Does this sound like something that could work for you? Make sure that you're doing that many different times throughout your presentation. It's going to really help you in the direction that you head with them. Now, getting into leading questions. A leading question is a question that leads to a yes answer. So it's really important to ask these type of questions when you can tell, based on the prospect's body language or their facial expressions or what they're telling you, that they love what they're hearing. Hey, that's a beautiful color, isn't it? Or sounds like that time frame works perfect, doesn't it? Sounds like this price is great for you, right? Ask questions that lead to that yes answer. And leading questions are so important because the more small yeses you get throughout your process, the easier it will be for you to get that larger yes at the end of your process. And so if someone's obviously liking what you're saying and you can tell, there's no need to ask a trial close, because a leading question will be much more powerful. If you know you're going to get a yes, you want a yes, right? You want a yes on every facet of your proposal, and that large yes at the end. So no reason to ask them a yes or no question, a question they can say a no to, when you can tell that they are, really digging what you're saying. Ask them a leading question, ask them something that's going to get that yes answer. The more yeses you get throughout your sales presentation, the easier it's going to be for you to get that major yes at the end. Why would they tell you they don't want something when they've been telling you the whole time, that every different piece of the puzzle fits perfectly for them with your product or service? Now I'm going to get off closing questions for a brief minute here and talk to you about a third type of question that you want to be asking your prospects throughout your presentation or consultation. And Now, again, this isn't a closing question, but it is going to help set you up for that final close. And that is any question that's going to lead back to the pain that they're feeling because of their problem and why your product or service solves that problem, and any question that leads them to tell you the benefits of your product or service in their life or business or whatever that may be. Now, you want them talking about these things because if you're telling them why it solves their problem or what the benefits are, maybe they're going to think it's a benefit. Maybe they're going to think it solves their problem. Maybe they're not at all, right? There's a very good chance that, again, they're not listening to you. So, but if they tell you why it's going to be beneficial for them in their life, then obviously it's a true benefit to them. And also it's going to click in their head much more if they're telling you than if you're just talking to them, because they're going to hear themselves. Now, another crucial step to make sure that you are well set up for the close is to make sure and create urgency and have an assumptive attitude. Okay, now I'm going to go into attitude in another video. And urgency is another 20-30 minute video as well, so I'm not going to discuss it here. But one thing I just want to leave with you right now, and keep this in mind, is that if there is no reason for them to buy today, why wouldn't they wait and think it over and potentially purchase it tomorrow? So make sure that you have a lot of reasons why they need to buy today or in the very near future sprinkled throughout your presentation to help you in the close. Now, I don't recommend asking that final closing question necessarily at the end of your presentation, okay? And, you don't need to tell them every single thing that they could possibly know about your product and service before you actually ask them to commit to purchasing what you're selling. What I recommend having in place is obviously all those things that I just told you. But right around the period of time where you get confirmation from them that your product or service meets their needs and solves their problem is when you should ask that first closing question. And when I say first closing question, I'm not talking about trial closes. I'm not talking about leading questions. You should have already been asking a bunch of those. And you can ask more of those. But I'd actually recommend that you ask that actual closing question for them to move forward with your product or service. You ready to move forward today? When you can see that that product or service does fulfill their needs, you're confident in that, and they've told you that it solves their problem. After you ask that closing question, wait. Wait for their response. Don't start talking. You want to hear their answer. It's super important that you just stay silent after you ask the closing question. Like Leonardo DiCaprio said when he was playing Jordan Belfort in Wolf of Wall Street, whoever talks first loses. So bottom line, don't talk past the sale, okay? I know a lot of salespeople talk past the sale because they are worried about that no. Don't worry about the no. They're not rejecting you, they're rejecting your product or service. It's not a personal rejection, all right? And a no just gives you a chance to either find out what their objections are and handle those objections up front and move forward to the close. Or if there's a roadblock to making the sale and they're not a good fit for whatever reason, you can stop wasting your time with them and there's billions more people to talk to, all right? So I do recommend on making your initial closes more soft, more assumptive type closes, because they are somewhat early on in the process, okay? So this will make them less obvious, all right? And so as you're assuming the sale and you're going through the process, if you haven't got to that actual close where you're filling out the paperwork with them and things of that nature, then I would start progressively getting more and more direct with your closes as the process moves forward. And I recommend doing it this way, again, to just make them more comfortable with the closing process, all right? You don't have to be super direct right off the bat. Ease them into the close. So you want to make sure while you are closing that you are being a professionally persistent salesperson, not a pushy salesperson. There's a very big difference between the two. Okay, so if you've earned your right, which we've spoke about quite a bit already, to ask for the sale, you can tell that this solves their problem, you will persist. If you can tell that they benefit much more from this product or service than the commission is going to benefit you, you owe it to them to persist in the close. But again, persistence can come off as pushiness, all right? So a pushy salesperson is gonna say, do you wanna buy this? Do you wanna buy this? Do you wanna buy this? They're gonna ask the exact same way with no tact, no skill, bunches of times in hopes that the person's gonna say yes. Those are the type of salespeople that give us a really bad name, all right? So they're not going to do the upfront work. They're not going to make sure it solves the prospect's problem. And they're just going to keep asking for the sale. And they're going to push that person away. And they're not going to want to talk to you anymore. That prospect is not going to want to talk to you ever again if that's the way that you are acting. And honestly, you shouldn't be in sales if you're doing it that way. Okay? What you need to do is you need to learn many different closes. I would say have at least 20 different final closes scripted, memorized, and role played. So so it's second nature, so it's unconscious competence. You don't even have to think about it. Because what you want to do is you want to ask for the close, all right? Ask them to move forward today. Then they may say yes, but they may say no, and here's why. Then you want to discuss that objection, handle that objection, then ask for the sale again. But you don't want to ask for it in the exact same way again. You want to ask for it in another way, okay? Then you want to work through potentially another objection, okay? And we'll go into handling objections in another video. And then you want to ask again in a different way, all right? Because it could take you a good 5-6 times to ask for the sale before they say yes to you. And you want to be able to stay within the close throughout this process, all right? You don't want to be stumped on how to ask for the sale again, all right? So here's how it's going to work. Now, you can Google all different types of closes and closing questions and things of that nature. So I'm not going to go through a whole bunch of them. I will give you some of my favorites just to set you on the right path. But you'll want to do your own research. I mean, just again, go to Google, consult the Google gods and say, hey, what are some of the top closes, all right? And figure out what the top gentlemen, the top salespeople are doing in your organization as well. Because they probably have some unique closes to your product or service that Google's not going to tell you about, all right? But so here's the flow of it, right? You're going to want to, let's say that you assume the sale, all right? And you've assumed it so well that you're literally filling out the paperwork with them. They're like, oh, whoa, wait. No, we didn't say we wanted to buy this. Okay, no problem. What's holding you back? All right, now get their objections out, handle their objections, and now this time, ask a multiple choice close, all right? So do you want to move forward with blue or red today? Do you want to, do you want to have this installed tomorrow, or would next week work better for you? All right. Then potentially they're going to say yes. Potentially they're going to come up with another objection. Okay. Then you're going to, again, handle that objection. And then you're going to want to ask for the close in a different way. So this time you ask for a direct close. All right. Looks like we've handled your objections. Ready to move forward today? They still say no. Handle that objection, and then ask a urgency close or a takeaway close. Hey, I understand if you don't do this today, it's no problem. But let's say hypothetically you go home and think about this, and you realize that this is definitely the right choice for you. You call me 2 days from now and you want to move forward, and I've sold this because it's our last one. Would you have regrets? Okay. Then they have some more objections you need to work through, all right? And you handle those, and then finally on your maybe 5th or 6th try, you get the sale, all right? Now, this is not going to happen every time, but you do want to be able to get to the point to where you can hang in there in the close. And the reason you want to ask in many different ways through this process and not the exact same way every time is because you come off a lot less pushy when you're asking in a different way. And another big reason why you want to make sure and have a whole bunch of different types of closes is obviously you're going to be having a conversation. So as we're stalling or throwing up objections, the conversation is going to be growing organically, and it's going to be a unique conversation. So you want to grab the right close from your arsenal for that situation. All right. So let me give you an example of this. Let's say that you assume the sale, and they say, actually, no, we're not sure if we want to move forward. and you probe for their potential objections, and through probing and talking to them a little bit more, you realize that you may have a couple different products that could work really well for them. All right, so then you do an alternative choice close. Do you want to move forward with this one or this one? Then they still say, let's say hypothetically, that they're really not sure, all right? And you can tell that there's something holding them back. So then you could do what's called a scale close, all right? On a scale from 1 to 10, how close are you to moving forward, with this product today? Hypothetically, let's say they say a 7. Okay, then you respond with, what would it take to get you to a 10? All right, then again, they're sharing their objections with you, all right? And then let's say as they're sharing their objection is a lower price competitor. Then you could grab a price quality service close out of your arsenal and use that and then close the sale. All right, so you're going to want to choose a close that's going to be the most beneficial for you based on the unique conversation that you're having with that individual. And every conversation and every person and every need is different, right? And as you get really good at closing, what you'll find is on the spot, you will actually be able to come up with the best close that is not scripted, that you haven't memorized. You're just going to come up with the best close for that situation right on the spot as you get better at this process. I mean, my best closes are closes that I've never memorized, I've never written down, I've never scripted them. They just came to me based on the unique situation of that individual. It was just a unique, brand new close that I just came up with on the spot. Now, if you're still watching this video, obviously you've gotten a tremendous amount of benefit from it, and it's probably helped you solve some of your problems in regards to the area of your close. Since that's the case, go ahead and click that like button and subscribe to my channel. I'm gonna have a lot more videos coming out in regards to the sales process. Now I'm gonna go into some of my favorite closes, and I've got a lot of favorite closes, and there's a lot of closes out here. So this is not by any means all-encompassing or anything of that nature. These are just some of my personal favorites and great situations to use them in. Now, one of my favorites is the takeaway close. The takeaway close plays on the fear of loss. Many times people are going to do more to make sure they don't lose something than they would even do to make sure that they gain something, all right? So when you can tell that someone really wants your product or service, but for whatever reason, and you can't figure it out, they are not moving forward, take it away from them, all right? Take it away from them and use that fear of loss to kick them over to the edge to go ahead and move forward with your product or service. So the takeaway close goes like this. Sounds like you're unable to make a decision today. We've determined that this definitely really does meet your needs and solves your problem. Keep in mind, I told you this is my last one and I will sell it today. It's unfortunate you were unable to make a decision, but it's okay. Very nice meeting you. Get up off your handshake. Have a nice day. So this is very powerful. Do not use this as one of your first closes. This is your last resort close, okay? So you use this close when you've already tried to close them multiple times and you've probed for their objections and they're 95% there and they need a little bit of a kick to go over the edge, all right? Maybe they've got an objection that for some reason they're not telling you even though you've been probing for it and things of that nature. It's gonna work wonderfully if it does solve their problem and you can tell they really want it and it really makes sense for them. All right. Now, keep in mind, this is going to backfire on you if those things aren't in place. All right. If they're not sure if it solves their problem, or if you're not sure that they are like 95% there, they may just get up and say, okay, yeah, you have a nice day too. All right. So this is a last resort close after you've asked for the sale probably 3, 4, maybe even 5, 6 times. And you can tell it makes sense for them. And for whatever reason, you just cannot figure out why they are not moving forward that day, what that final little objection may be. All right, now keep in mind this is a very generic takeaway close. You need to make sure that you really do have one left. It needs to be specific to your situation, industry, product, and service, and all of those things. This is just, again, framework for you to think about to be creating your own takeaway close specific to your situation. And if these people really do feel like this is going to solve their problem, it's going to benefit them and they want it, watch them say, no, sit back down, let's talk. And they're gonna move forward with you. All right, so my go-to first close, again, is always the assumptive close. Now, it's always good to have an assumptive attitude throughout the whole process, but if they said yes to you many times and they've agreed that this product, solves their problem and meets their needs and things of that nature, the sale is really basically already done. You don't need to directly ask for it. All you need to do is just start filling in the paperwork with them. Ask them assumptive questions. Give me your full name. Give me your address, your contact information. Just fill out the paperwork with them, push it over to them, ask for their signature, or send it to them electronically, have them sign on their phone or on their computer, however you do it. But just assume that, because you've already figured it all out, that they're just moving forward. You have too much confidence that they're moving forward. You don't need to ask. Very powerful for your initial close. All right, so this is called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway close. This is actually a close that I created during COVID-19 because there's obviously a lot of fear, anxiety, and uncertainty in the marketplace right now. And I wanted to make sure that people weren't making a long-term decision based on short-term circumstances. So this is going to be a really great closing, obviously, when it is a long-term decision that they're making, okay? And your product or service has a phenomenal track record of being a good long-term decision. This is going to be great for many different type of investments and portfolios, stocks, bonds, real estate, different financial instruments that you can show them over time is going to be a great decision for them no matter what happens in the short term, okay? It goes like this. I completely understand there's a lot of fear and uncertainty in the marketplace right now, but keep in mind that nothing is ever 100% certain. We can't even be 100% certain that we're going to wake up tomorrow, okay? So you do have to be comfortable with the fact of making a positive buying decision with some level of uncertainty involved. Like Warren Buffett said, be greedy when others are fearful. He made billions of dollars in situations and time periods just like this one. You have that same opportunity right now. And if you are looking for maximum certainty in anything, take a look at the track record of this product. And you'll see that no matter what happens in the short term, this is a great long-term decision for you. Okay? So I recommend that you go ahead and you feel that fear and uncertainty and you move forward anyway. Any decision that you made in your life that was worthwhile was a little bit scary, wasn't it? That's natural and normal. Ready to move forward? All right, so this closing is also another closing I created called the market timing close, okay? This is gonna be good for all of the products that I spoke about in my last close, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Any product or service that has a great track record for the long term and is tied to some type of market, okay? And so again, this has to be something for someone looking to make a long-term decision, not jump in and jump out and things of that nature. It's for people that have been waiting on the sidelines and they're not sure when they should actually make a decision to get involved in your product based on what the market is doing. Because if your product has a good track record long-term, then they're losing out if they're waiting on the sidelines, okay? And they're probably not gonna be able to accurately predict the market anyway. Okay, it's people like Warren Buffett and Ray Dalio that spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year that can make accurate predictions about the markets that they're in. The rest of us typically can't, all right? And we're losing more money sitting on the sidelines trying to time the market than if we were just in the market and taking the highs and lows of that market over long periods of time, we'd be making a lot more money, all right? So they're losing money. It's the best, if they're making a long-term decision, it's a much better situation if they just go ahead and get in that product in whatever market that's in and ride the ups and downs of that, and it's going to be more of an up and down like this over time, not like this, right? So it goes like this. Look, it's really, really hard to time the market. It's people like Ray Dalio and Warren Buffett that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year that can accurately predict the market. The rest of us can't typically. And you're losing a lot of money sitting on the sidelines while the market goes up. No matter what happens in the short term, you said you want to do this for 10 years. Okay, look at the 10-year track record of this product. You're going to be fine no matter what happens in the short term of this market. Okay, and keep in mind, you told me that this is the right time in your life to move forward with this. Even if this was the right time in the market, but if it was the wrong time in your life, it would be wrong for you. Okay? So since this is the right time in your life, I recommend that you move forward. And what you can do with this close as well, which I didn't do because I didn't want to take too much time, but you can really expand again on the reasons why they told you that this is the right time in their life or why they want to do this. All right. So you're getting them to focus more on themselves and why this is the right decision for them right now, not on, trying to calculate a market that they can't calculate anyway. Make that a moot point, and then if it makes sense, expand on those emotional and logical reasons why they want to buy now. Because keep in mind, they're losing out on the benefits in the meantime as well of your product or service. So again, maybe that's money. I made an analogy saying it was money, like it was real estate or the stock market or bonds or gold or whatnot, but it can be productivity, it can be time. I mean, let's say hypothetically they're buying a house. Like, not only is the real estate market going gangbusters right now and they're gaining equity in their house, but they're also living in a beautiful house that is great for their family potentially. All right, so this is a really great close to just kind of bring it back to them, leave out the other stuff that they can't control and focus on what they can control and get them to reconnect to the reasons why they feel like this is a good, product or service to move forward with. All right, so this next close is called the urgency close. Now, this is a close that's been around forever, and many sales, trainers and salespeople have talked about it. And it goes like this. Now, I realize that you can't make a decision today because you've just told me that. Keep in mind, I only have 2 of these left, and they are going to be sold today. Now, it's perfectly fine if you want to go home and think about it, take your time. But let's say hypothetically, sounds like this is a very good opportunity for you. Let's say that you come to the conclusion that you do want to do this, and you call me tomorrow and I've sold both of these. Would you have regrets? All right, this is a very powerful close. It's very similar to the takeaway close, but it doesn't actually fully take away. It just has the urgency factor that the takeaway close has as well. And it does put them in a position to think about, oh my God, what if I do lose this? How am I going to feel, right? And again, this plays on the fear of loss, which is many times greater than the desire for gain. Very powerful close. And what's great about this close is if they say, yes, I would have regrets, sale is made. All right, so this next close is an alternative choice close, which is a very popular close as well. What's great about it is it puts you in a position to ask a question, and whether they say, I want this one or this one, either way they've purchased. So, and it also gives them the illusion of choice. So it's easier for someone to choose between something and something instead of something and nothing. And again, either choice for you doesn't really matter. They've decided to own what you're selling. And obviously, not moving forward is not one of the choices you give them. So it goes like this. Would you like that in blue or red? Would you like to start service tomorrow or next week? Would you like to have delivery on Friday or Monday? All right, powerful close. All right, so I'm not gonna go over any more specific closes. I can in other videos if all of you want me to. There's so many different closes out there, and I could just keep going and going and going. I've memorized and internalized so many different types. And again, I recommend you do as well. Now, I do think it's also worth mentioning that obviously as you are closing and handling objections and closing again, obviously you can get to the point to where it does feel somewhat forced or pushy to the customer. So it can be very beneficial to get off the close for a little while. Get them talking about what they love about the product, get them talking about their personal life, reconnect to them and get them laughing. Humor is always very beneficial in life in general and in sales, all right? So talk about some other things for a little while and then go back, to the close from there. Takes a little bit of the pressure off, and it helps the longevity of the close so you can finally get to that place, and it loosens them up a little bit as well. In closing, I would like to say that learning how to close is a process, all right? And one that you will need to master if you are serious about becoming a top sales professional. It takes a combination of the right attitude, strategy, and perceptions, to become an expert at the art of closing. And bottom line, it takes practice. Repetition is the mother of skill. So practice your different closes and the closing process until it becomes part of you, until it becomes unconscious competence. All right, everyone, that is the conclusion of my video. If you like this video, please click the like button. Subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more content about sales and the sales process. And if you have any questions, leave a comment below. It was great spending a little bit of time with you here. Until I see you next time, go crush it in your sales career. Later.